The question is it beneficial for home sellers to do a pre-listing floor plan, have somebody come out, do a floor plan of the house, get the correct square footage? Is that beneficial in today's market from a listing standpoint?
Absolutely. The number one factor in valuation generally in most situations is the size of the home. And as you said, you're completely right. Tax records are notoriously incorrect. What they
Right.
generally report is gross building area rather than gross living area. Gross building area includes basement, garages, porches, all kinds of other things that the tax assessor is trying to include in their valuation, and they have no other way to do it. But when we're looking at it from a valuation standpoint, as an appraiser, we look at the true gross living area and separate that out from the basement space.
What does it cost to have somebody come out and do like a square footage measurement and a floor plan?
A typical home we can do for just $150 to measure that out, and we'll give it back to you within 24 to 48 hours. Sometimes we can do it right on the spot.
Everybody who listens to the show regularly knows that home values month over month this year versus last year, they're still staying at about an 18% increase. I don't know if you're seeing the same numbers, Scott, but when you get homes that are appreciating this quickly, what problems does that cause for appraisers? Because I know sometimes you might have a hard time keeping up with values, keeping up with what a buyer would be willing to pay.
Exactly. I have this analogy of me racing a horse next to another guy who's speeding along, and I'm sitting on the horse backwards because I've got to look at the market, everything that's happened in the past, and they're racing ahead, representing the market. It's just an insane market right now. We do the very best we can to try to calculate the rate of appreciation in that given area, but there's no real website to go to or true database. So it's based on the sales. And right now, the volume of sales is so low, it causes yet another problem.
How does an appraiser make adjustments in that situation? How do they try to understand if something sold in October, if it sold in April, it would have sold for this much more?
Yeah, and that kind of presumes too that it's a linear progression, and it isn't. It spikes at certain times, which is challenging.
Yep.
But we look back at the data that we have for sales of comparable properties in that area, and we calculate that rate of appreciation as it's happened in the past.
Yep.
Then we look at any properties that are currently under contract. We get their sales price from very cooperative agents like you and your agents who will work with us.
Yep.
We then make all the same adjustments for our comparables. Those new pending sales now show us exactly what the market is today. It really helps us get right up to today's value.
So when you have less sales flowing through the system, when you have less closings flowing through the system, how does that affect your ability to find comparables? What process are you following? What rules are you following in terms of trying to gather the right comparables for a specific property?
That's a great explanation, because there may be 20 sales in a given area, but maybe only 3 or 4 of them are truly comparable.
Right.
So we need to focus on the ones that are actually comparable. What would be a substitute property that a typical buyer would have considered if they were looking at the subject property? So when we have a drop in the volume of sales as we have now, in a normal market, that might not be so bad, because I could go back a little bit further, get other comps that sold in the neighborhood that are maybe 5 or 6 months old, but not in today's market. So it's kind of a catch-22. We're getting squeezed on both ends. I can't go back in time. I don't really want to go out in distance. That's my only other option. Now I'm going to a neighborhood that might be not as comparable.
What is a desktop appraisal? And in your opinion, is it a good thing or a bad thing? And do you think they're here to stay?
Well, Fannie Mae says they're here to stay, but I don't know how widely they're going to be used. They launched here at the beginning of April, and I think there's only a small volume of lenders and loans that are actually utilizing them.
Okay.
The problem is the appraiser that's doing it is not visited the property. They're being given data by a technology device. Somebody goes out and does a digital measuring with these probes to try to estimate the square footage of the home. Those are not very accurate. We're seeing at least a 5 to 10% variance. And then the appraiser never actually puts eyes on the property, doesn't drive around the neighborhood. It's really a poor appraisal.